I'd like to welcome you all to the RSU 25 School Board February meeting. You all please join with me. The pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Jim, would you please be kind enough to take the attendance, knowing full well that we've got one person on Zoom?
Yep. I have Mr. Foster is here, Mr. Burgess is here, Mr. Frazier is here attending remotely, Mr. Nealand is here, Mr. Wentworth is here, Mr. Kopp is here. I have not heard from Ms. Foster.
Okay,
We do have a quorum and can proceed.
great, thank you. Next, we have public participation. This is the moment for public participation. If you are with us online and you'd like to email for public comment, you could do so at publiccomment@rsu25.org. Or you could phone in for public comment at 307-8099. And looking around the room, not seeing anyone, just sprinting up to that lovely little lucite podium that we have up there. And so I will move on to adjustments to the agenda, of which we have a few.
A few, yes, we do. We have a couple, there's no doubt. First of all, I'd like to add item 10, so the administrators have an opportunity to report out. Somehow they got left off the agenda again. So we'll keep working with that block that I seem to be having. Keep trying. If we could also add to L1A resignations, Amanda Roy, BMS 0.5 FTE Assistant Principal, Christy Grant, Adult Ed Secretary, Larry Deans, BHS Boys Varsity Basketball Coach, Joel Sankey, BHS Varsity Football Coach. And if you could add 2 nominations, L1B, Donna Short, BMS 0.5 FTE Assistant Principal, Michelle Grindle, BMS Softball Volunteer, Justin Gale, BMS Wrestling Volunteer, Alicia Finley, BMS Wrestling Volunteer, Jesse Gale, BMS Wrestling Volunteer, Danielle Hopkins, BMS Wrestling Volunteer. You would please change an L1B, Elena Christensen, she got married and her name is changed to Elena Wilson. So that's official, so we need to.
Wilson?
Winslow.
Winslow, okay.
Winslow.
Okay.
With it, I just gotta read properly.
Okay.
All right, and just a correction on date, school board meeting would be March 21st, as far as.
Right,
Get all those?
just a couple this time around. Next, I would look for an approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second from Keith. And now we will go to a roll call vote.
Outstanding.
Look at that.
Mr.
First
Foster.
time right out of the box. I approve.
Excellent. Mr. Burgess.
Approve.
Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Nealon.
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yes.
And Mr. Cod.
Aye.
That passes.
Next, we will move on to communications and correspondence.
Yeah. You have that in the report. We will be attending to, not this month, but next month. I just want to bring this to your attention, that the part of the law prescribes that we have to opt out if we choose not to do an after-school meal program. In the past years, the board has opted out. We don't have the economics to support that, nor do we have the staffing to support that. And because of that, we will need to have a vote of the board opting out. So I just bring that to your attention. We'll be attending to that next month. Okay. Also, pretty excited that Maine Maritime will be hosting a meet and greet with prospective students here at Bucksport High School Library. And I provided you with that information, and that'll be coming up March 1st, a Wednesday evening. And looking forward to that activity. Also on a side note, working on setting up a meeting with the new president, and they're looking for ways to collaborate with Bucksport High School. And that's pretty exciting, so I appreciated that opportunity.
And that's tomorrow night.
March 1st, yeah,
At what time?
that would be at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 8.
Okay.
All right. And also, we got a letter from Tony Reed, who's a program officer we do business with the Maine Municipal Bond Bank, to let us know is that we have met all obligations and we are free of debt for the middle school. Until later on, maybe. But it's good to know, right? And that's what I have for you folks.
Next, we go on to superintendent's report.
So went through communications, personnel, we talked about that. Number of resignations. We will be attending to the support staff contract. We'll first go into executive session and then come out and the board will take a vote as to their pleasure of moving forward with that. You have the calendar in there. That is on its third draft with some changes. Mr. Frazier caught a key mistake and we corrected that. So that's all set to go. So much of this has to do with what we currently have on agenda items. I do want to point out the middle school volleyball. They've had an amazing turnout. Over 40 kiddos came out, far exceeded their expectation. So there's a request from Mr. McGeechan to set up a trimmed down B type of a program. They've got an individual who'll be willing to lead that coaching. The high school has some uniforms that they've donated, so we don't have to worry about uniform costs. So it'll be a small investment, but it will certainly give these kiddos an opportunity to participate. All the way up here, you get the voting today. So that's my review with that, and it's hard to believe we're moving into March already. Holy cow, we are 2/3 of the way through the year. It's amazing. I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Jim? Board chairs report. What an exciting month February was. There was just so many exciting activities that happened between all of the different senior appreciation nights. We had girls soccer received some real special awards. We had some basketball games, and this is coming from somebody that absolutely loathes basketball. I don't enjoy basketball. I don't understand basketball. I am very short, and there's no hope of me ever playing basketball. And so I just never really appreciated it. Those games were amazing. We had some real nail biter games here. Just some really great times this February. And so I just wanted to really appreciate just how spectacular this last month has been and how really important the school is as a member of the community. So that is my report. Next we can move on to committee reports, and Abby is here.
Just in time.
Just
I'm
in
so
time.
sorry. I honestly left at 5 from Bangor. That's just how slow it is. I mean, it's slippery. It's not the worst I've ever driven through, but it just took time. So I apologize about being late. So we had our meeting on the 16th of February. And I will just give you a little overview. We kind of had an overlap meeting with Aspire to talk about ways we can kind of ingrain that into our curriculum so that when the grant is over, we're already doing a lot of the things, because some of the things are low cost or no cost, and it's just a matter of kind of making it habit. And so we're working closely with that committee. We also had a couple updates from Christina. The K-12 life career ready standards. she has a team in place and, this is per policy and procedure from our policy and procedures, from the board. The standards and curriculum overview were given to us and, they're basically looking at what resources do we have, what resources do we need? Because we might have to budget for some things, we might already have things that, we can utilize. And then they also looked at the K-12 English language arts. These guidelines were updated by the state of Maine in 2020, but due to the pandemic, they have given us time to update, so we need to make good on that and update, so we talked about that, and she has, a couple of teams in place for that, and then, Jim and Christina gave us some district updates, and our next meeting date is gonna be March 9th.
Any questions for Greg? All right. Finance Committee met right before this meeting. We have a new format for our finance reports, which if you take a look at them, it might cause a little bit of confusion. The percentages are exactly the other way than they used to be presented. So instead of being the amount that is remaining, it is the amount that is used. So, or do I have that just backwards? Because we've talked about that so many
No,
times.
you got it right. 47 reads 53.
There you go. Okay. But it's just the other way than we've always seen it. So, but we happen to be at the right percentage, so that's a good thing. We also discussed food service. The senior center is had a positive month. And the regular food service, after you factor in the month of subsidy that owed to us and has been received, we're only 20,000 under, which is really just us buying equipment. So not too bad in either one of those counts. Those are highlights from the finance committee. Any questions there? Next we've got policy.
Yeah, policy committee, we met last night, bringing forward 2 policies we'll discuss later on tonight. One around celebration of holidays and the other, public right to freedom of access.
Facilities and grounds.
I'll do that since I'm taking over the people on this. We met on February 9th and discussed some capital projects, and one of them was we discussed resurfacing of the area behind the science in the science building, science wing, the wood shop at between the high school and the softball field. That was a potentially $25,000 capital project. We talked about that. Anthony updated us on the issues encountered during the weekend cold snap in early February. And we did well compared to the rest of the state schools. And one of the minor issues was frozen pipe from the heat supply to the cafeteria at the high school. Besides that, not a lot of really serious stuff. The update from Anthony on the bins insulation projects was presented in at the time of the high school. At that time, the high school insulation project was done and the middle school was next. The Jewish school was projected to have the most issues for insulation. They say it was told us that April vacation will be when the hot water heaters are to be installed throughout all schools. That's still.
That's the target, yeah.
Yep. Like I said, we discussed capital projects upcoming this summer, discussed the potable water situation at the Jewish school. And Jim presented us with the revolving renovation funds, and we discussed that, the loan versus the actual payback. We had 3 school projects, high school air quality, the mild lane air quality, and middle school exterior wall screen, rain screen, talked about that. Then Anthony presented us with different options on siting for the middle school. And do you have anything to add on that, Scott?
Nope,
Okay.
done well. You've done well.
All right, and our next meeting is March 9th.
If I can add just the cold snap, maybe just so folks understand how damaging that was. Right now, the property and casualty trusts, which we're insured by, On the books right now is $2.4 million worth of claims from damage from that.
So I guess
One
they did
weekend.
more than I thought.
And there's outstanding numbers that'll be coming in. So we're anticipating that's gonna be somewhere over $3 to $3.5 million of claims from the cold snap. And there were a significant number of freeze ups, pipe burst, interior flooding.
We didn't get too detailed in that, I guess, did we, because this is what he told.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess we had more than we thought.
well, that's just from today's meeting with Property.
Oh,
Management
okay.
Trust. We got the report back from the underwriter.
Oh, okay.
And this property casualty trust encompasses what, Maine, New England?
Just Maine,
Just Maine,
schools,
so just within Maine,
just within Maine.
there was that much lost.
A number of schools lost. Well, I know one school in Hancock County lost some of the sprinkler pipes burst and flooded their gymnasium, their offices, their tech rooms.
Well, during that cold snap, I went to the Orland Community Center, which
Yeah.
is probably about what most state schools are, right?
Similar.
It was, I mean, it was so cold. We had an exercise class that actually worked out nice because we were hot, but when we were getting in, I mean, it was just, it couldn't keep up.
So
It
your
wasn't that they-
exercise class saved the pipes.
I think that's the reason Orland was
You
okay.
know, they ended up
Did they really? It was so cold in there. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
So just as an
We
aside,
tried.
that's kind of the reasons why doing the insulation, keeping the heating plants up to speed and
Yeah.
really, really important. So, and Anthony did spend much of the weekend coming into all of the buildings, checking them, visually checking them, and we also turned the heat sets up. So we took it off the lower night set, put it on the day set, it's kept the buildings warmer.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate.
And then that leaves us with HCDC.
We did meet, we met on February 9th, and we welcomed Bill Tracy as the new director. He gave us an update on the enrollment, and enrollment was down slightly. That's very normal for mid-year because some students decide that this wasn't quite the career path that they thought they'd be interested in. But I think the highlight of the meeting was they have contracted with Tailwind Media out of, I think, Rockland. And we were the first to watch a 4.5-minute video highlighting HCTC. And I was so impressed. Jim may be able to, I think he was impressed also. It was so well done. They interviewed students in different programs, and it was just so professionally done. I was amazed. That's it.
And they're on the process of doing these annual spring tours to the high schools to visit with potential students and getting ready for applications for enrollment for next year. There we go.
Any questions for Scott? Okay, we can move on to old business, of which there is none. And now we are in new business with some resignations and retirements.
Yes, we have. So I have under new business resignations. I've got Amanda Roy, 25 FE Assistant Principal BMS, and she will go back to full-time teaching. Okay. I also please add in the amendment, we have Christy Grant, Adult Ed Secretary, Larry Deans, BHS Boys Varsity Basketball Coach, and Joel Sankey, BHS Varsity Basketball Coach. Those are your resignations.
Now, the list that I've got,
Okay.
quite a few more people.
Yeah, I gotta go. That's for teachers and administrators. Okay. Next. For support personnel, Autumn Lutein at Tech 1, Deb Moore Food Service, Cheryl Crawford Food Service. We already talked about Christy Grant. Coaches, George Watkins, BMS Assistant Track. And you've already got Larry Deans and Joe Sankey on there. And you have Kelly Mahern as bus driver.
Okay,
Okay.
and I would look for a motion to accept all of the listed resignations and retirements with regret.
I move that we accept all of the resignations and retirements as a block with regret.
I second.
Is that a second? Very motion and a second, and now we will move to a roll call vote. It's 2 for 2.
You're doing great. You're on it. Mr.
Right.
Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yeah.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Nealon,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth,
Yes.
and Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Very much.
Now then we have
Appointments.
some appointments.
Yes, we do. I get her on the proper page here because I'm going back and forth. All right. So. As they appear. Donna Short, Assistant Principal, 0.5 FTE at the middle school. Okay. Should I get all these? Then we've got Michaela Balsam, Food Service. George Watkins, VHS JV Baseball. Sherry Roy, BMS Assistant Drama Director. Cody Davis, BMS Baseball Coach. Mary Chafee, BMS Softball Coach. Madeline Hanlon, BMS Track and Field Coach. Melissa Suford, BMS Assistant Track and Field Coach. Michelle Grindle, BMS Softball Volunteer. Justin Gale, BMS Volunteer for Wrestling. Alicia Finley, BMS Wrestling Volunteer. Jesse Gale, BMS Wrestling Volunteer. Danielle Hopkins, BMS Wrestling Volunteer. Did I get everybody? Did I miss anybody? And Alina Winslow, I'm sorry. And that is an ed tech position, correct? Mr. West? Volleyball. Volleyball.
Yeah, I think you're missing a few here. Yeah.
Thank you. More volunteers, Rob Wadley, high school baseball, Lori Stevens, Vicky Giroux, Corey Beers, Jan Simpson, Lexi Wardwell, VHS softball, Teresa Crumble, and Helena Winslow, EMS volleyball. I've already got all the EMS wrestling
Did you get drama?
and drama, Christina Logic. So I got double lists going. So you've got everybody and a couple of people twice.
My cousin running the drama program, they didn't ask me to help.
So I would look for a motion to approve all of the many nominations that we have had as a block.
I move that we approve all of these nominations as a block.
I second.
Oh, he can
I
second.
get a motion and a second.
She gave me
Move
permission to
to a
say.
roll call.
Mr. Foster,
I approve.
Mr. Nealon, I'm changing it up.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth,
Yeah.
Ms. Foster,
I'm in favor.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
There you go. Thank you.
So our next item on the agenda is an executive session.
So it is.
So that means we will have to, right, ask all of these nice people that will
So
help
we-
them all way,
Freeze the video,
raise the video,
projecting outwards,
and then
have the conversation.
have our conversation, and then we will come back.
Right.
So, so you know, it's not you, it's us.
So I need a motion to executive session.
We will move. Go into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 4056D for discussion relative to support staff negotiation. All those in favor? No, we need a second.
You need a second.
Second. Got a second. Roll call vote?
Yeah, Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yeah.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Nealon,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cox.
Yes.
All right, so we are officially in at 6:22.
So we're all back. And now we can move on to consideration by the board to adopt proposed support staff contract for the fiscal years 24, 25, and 26. Look for a motion.
I move that we consider that we adopt the proposed support staff contract for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26.
Respecting it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Now we will move to a roll call vote. All those in favor?
Mr. Foster,
I am in favor.
Mr. Nealon,
Mulling it over.
I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes,
Mr. Frazier,
Yes,
passes.
Consideration of possible adoption of proposed 23-24 school. Your draft calendar. 1/24. Years. Again, this does align with our council.
Within our required limitations of dissimilar days. The correction that Mr. Frazier made was, bless you, sir. Yeah. This calendar does account for up to 5 storm days if needed. And as always, if they use less, then we move everything back. If they use more, we add to the end. That would answer any questions for you.
Yeah, Abby, did this go through your thing?
it did. Yep.
And they view was positive?
Yeah, the view was positive. There was very little discussion except for the first draft had like one different day that we discussed that has been changed back and that made total sense. So, yeah, we are just looking to approve it so that we can distribute it to the other schools that we do this work for.
Vacations after April 15th, so I'm happy.
Yeah,
Right.
Any other comments or questions for Abby on the calendar that went through the curriculum committee? Okay, then I would ask for a motion.
I move that we adopt the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar.
Second,
I second that.
right, move on to a roll call vote.
Mr. Foster,
I approve.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yeah,
Mr. Frazier,
yes,
Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yes.
And Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Next, we move on to consideration and possible action on school revolving renovation fund award.
So in your packet, I gave you quite a bit of information. We had 3 of our 4 applications that went into the state of Maine approved for revolving renovation funds. So to remind everybody, revolving renovations, that's a program that is funded by the state of Maine, run through the Maine Bond Bank. It's a 0 interest loan, which also forgives a certain percentage of the loan, depending on the receivership or the state share of general purpose aid to the district. And that was based on last year or this current year's 279. So our loans will be given 58.24% of our loans will be forgiven. So the projects that we were approved for was the exterior of Bucksport Middle School. That project has been estimated and engineered at $1.4 million. We were approved for a $1 million loan. That'll be paid over 10 years. The difference of $400,000, we have that money in the capital reserve. My proposal is we go forward to the public, ask for their support to allow us to expend that money out of capital reserve to make that project whole for funding. So our payback for that project would be $417,600 over 10 years, or $41,760, with $582,000 forgiven. Yes, sir.
This says for a rain screen, but is that like a full repair of the entire side? I didn't know if it was for a specific item or if that was
No,
a full repair.
it's the whole exterior, anywhere that exterior is masonry and also has a fiber board with vinyl wrap on it. Wherever that vinyl wrap board is, that comes off. They repair everything underneath, make sure there's breathing the way it should be, put in a new exterior. The exterior that we looked at through the facilities committee and recommended that be used is a metal system, interlocking system, and it will be both horizontal and vertical, matching what's currently up there for siding. The second project they approved was the Miles Lane HVAC upgrade. We know there that system is, believe it or not, over 26 years old, 25 years old. So that would rebuild the air handling units, tune those up, improve the air ventilation and flow, replace what needs to be replaced. That project estimated at $977,026. We would receive a 10-year loan for that, again, zero interest, and our payback on that $977,000 is $408,006, or $40,801. The third project is the Bucksport High School HVAC upgrade, which would be the repair and revitalization of the air handling in the gymnasium, which hasn't worked for a few years now. We also will add ventilation in the cafeteria, which has none, and we'll take all the other air handlers on the building right now, improve their function, rehab those, and that project came in at $964,025. That again is a 10-year loan, zero interest. Payback on the $964,000 is $402,577. So what I provided for you also in your information is I provided the next steps of the project. So you're aware, we received the notification from the DOE. The award notice will be presented to the facilities committee, and members of the facilities committee can chime in here, but it was, I believe, fully supported from the facilities committee to move forward with these projects. So I would have to notify the main bond bank by March 2nd of moving forward. I've already had conversations with, again, Tony Reed, the same lady I mentioned before. So she's waiting to hear from me after this meeting. And then there's an application process. I've already been in touch with Bill Stockmeyer of Drummond and Woodson, because we're going to need bond counsel, which would establish a referendum date, which we've identified as June 13th, which is the same date we would do our budget validation vote, so everything's stuck together. The posting dates for this and the posting dates for our budget are different dates. So I'm going to have to make sure we hit all those dates properly. And then coming to you to the board tonight for acceptance of the SRRF awards. And then I complete the loan application, continue to work with BIMS for bid advertisement, establish a date for the sealed bids to come in from vendors, and then award bids pending the public support of the vote on June 13th. So these projects have to be completed by September 30th, 2024. Payment on these projects have to be within 12 months after the completion. date, so we would target the following fiscal year to start paying. on this. We have used this SRF policy project for this high school. That was 1/3 of the cost of this project was the high school renovation, and believe it or not, that last payment for that is next year. So that's 11 years ago. It's amazing how quickly that went. Yeah. So is there anything else I can share or information that board members would like? So consideration?
So, I just have this one question. I think I already know the answer, but I just want to confirm it. We've got 3 projects in total, it's roughly $3 million.
2.9, yeah.
And roughly 1.7 of that is going to be paid for by the state.
That is correct.
And that 1.7 is going through this project. Doesn't just get subtracted out of our general purpose aid in the future.
Totally separate.
Okay, because I had that as a question. Is this just a shell game?
Not at all.
Do they lower your general purpose aid because you got this other money from the state?
No,
Okay,
it's a good question. That's an astute question. No. This is totally separate from the general purpose aid.
but that's all my question. Any other?
So we approve this, we're just approving that it goes out to the voters and then their vote will either yay or nay these projects.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, I would look for a motion. Is there a specific motion we have to have?
Motion for the board to accept the revolving renovation funds as presented pending voter approval on June 13th, 2022.
Okay, so moved. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Burgess.
All right. Now we will go to a roll call vote.
Okay, Mr. Foster.
Approved.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Ms. Foster.
Yes.
Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Affirmative.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yes.
And Mr. Carr.
Yeah.
All right. All approved. Now you can do all the rest of the paperwork. associated with all that.
This will keep me fully engaged for quite a few days.
I suspect it probably will.
Yeah, but that's all right.
And that March 2nd due date.
No, I just have to call up and notify. So tomorrow morning,
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna call this
You get
meeting.
the phone call. Okay.
I've got approval. I'll send you the minutes once I get approved next month and we're good to go.
Okay.
All right.
So next we have update on middle school volleyball, considerations for allowing the formation of a B team.
Yeah, so I kind of gave you a heads up on this in my report, but a great turnout with the starting of a volleyball program. Over 40 kiddos came out, which is great. Obviously, you can't have 40 kiddos on one team. You have a number of kids that are interested in doing this. So Mr. McGeechan came forward to Mr. West and it got my desk with a request that if they could come up with a proposal for a B team, modified 4 to 5 game schedule. Smaller number of practices, only a couple per week. Very limited travel, if anything. The only equipment would be needed is uniforms, and they already got that from the high school having uniforms left over from a previous set of uniforms. So we're talking about a small stipend for a coach, which would be less than about $1,000, no more than that. And whatever incidental travel, we have 1 or 2 trips, is to start another section of this to, for kids to play volleyball.
So this would be 5th, 6th graders.
Yeah,
Primarily 6, 7.
Okay.
Will they be able to scrimmage each other, the
Yeah.
A and the B team?
Oh, yeah.
That'll be good for
Yeah,
both
it's a-
teams,
it's a
really.
Games.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask. I mean, do we have a schedule?
Mr. McGeechan has worked on a preliminary
There are
schedule.
other schools with the same.
Brewer, Bangor, and Hamden are all in the same boat. And so they're looking for.
It'd be really good to keep the kids that are interested, you know, maybe an intramural situation
Keep them involved.
too, exactly, because.
And Mr. McGeechan he hasn't come up with a definitive schedule yet, obviously, until it's pending board approval, but he's talked about setting up a play date where bring those teams over. 4 teams, and they do kind of a round robin, and so they get a number of games in, and they travel and get a number of games, so.
Maybe we can talk about this separately, but I mean, it really would be great to have that B team, and then the kids who didn't make the B team have their own intramural
Yeah.
league
I
or
think
something to
the
keep
phys
them
ed
in.
teacher, Miss Cormier,
Yeah,
is doing more opportunities, not only in class, but outside of class for that intramural.
that'd be good, to hold their interest.
I'm excited. This has been a long time coming. Volleyball as a varsity sport has been in the high school for a number of years,
Grow.
had success for quite a few years as well, and it's never had a feeder system. And this just gives them other opportunities for the kids to have a good, healthy outlet and activity. Small money, we do have the money within the budget. It wasn't dedicated to that, but we always put money in there for intramurals, co-curriculars. This is an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah, strike drawing.
All right. So do you need a motion for?
Absolutely.
18?
I'll make a motion, to, let's see, allow the formation of a B team at the middle school as outlined in your proposal.
Second.
Motion and a second. We will move to a roll call vote.
Foster,
Approved.
yes, Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
In favor.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Now we move on to policies.
Yeah.
There are 2 for first read.
You have 2 for first reading. One of them already exists. It's policy KBB, which is public right to know freedom of access to information. The only thing that changed in that policy, this policy has served us well, is no issues with the policy, other than the fact that should there be a request for information that takes more than an hour's time, and it's significantly more than an hour's time, where we have to go and research, get the information, compile all that from previous public records. We are allowed to charge a fee that's set by the board. We had previously had it established at $15 an hour. That was in October of 2012. It's changed a little bit since then. We had spirited conversation, the policy committee on this, I guess, but the policy committee settled on $20 an hour as a change. Nothing else in the policy changed at all. Everything else would remain the same.
What were the concerns?
There was some members that would like to have seen a higher rate. And there was conversation around that as we didn't want to make it punitive.
Yeah.
Wanted it to be a reasonable amount to just kind of reflect the cost of our secretaries, our administrators gathering that information and compiling it.
Sure.
Just to be a break even. The concern was that if we went, there was numbers as high as $30 an hour, and just through conversation decided that was maybe a little bit too high.
Okay, thanks.
Does the $20 cover?
It comes close.
It's they almost break even.
Well,
But again,
it's
this is
kind of
public
balanced.
information. Right, we are a public entity, so we're not trying to make a profit out of this, but if we have the dedicated time, and I used an example. Once every 4 to 5 years, we get a request for a company out of state that wants to have a copy of all of our purchase orders for the last 2 to 3 years. That takes a lot of work to pull that together. And so in that case, if it's gonna be an excessive amount, and it's gonna be more than $100, I put together an estimate, give the people an estimate, and they can either say yes or no.
Yeah.
They've always said no. But there's plenty of public information that's more than reasonable for someone to ask. A lot of it we have on the website available, some of it's already predetermined by law, sitting in our office. So it can't be punitive, but at the same time, people can't come and take advantage of this law and just ask for, so it's, you find that balance, and I think, personally, I think that's reasonable.
Now, this is just for public information requests.
Right.
So if I want to know what my grades were back in 1975, You know, when I was in pre-kindergarten. That's a whole other experience of,
That's $100.
There are some permanent records that we're required to have, and if somebody comes and asks for those permanent records,
Yeah.
that doesn't fall under this, we retrieve those from them.
I don't think,
Actually, I've done that.
that might be policy, might be easy to do.
I know what I'm getting
I will do
for
those.
Christmas.
I know I don't want it.
We can get them before you.
Does not play well. I'm so proud of her, so.
A lot of times we get people looking for vaccination records. That's probably one of the more common,
Yeah, hard to retrieve.
not terribly,
But Tom, I haven't retrieved. This is normal.
so those are those things we don't, that doesn't fall underneath this, this is bigger.
And this only kicks in after the first hour.
Right,
Oh, good.
So, you know, for
So it's
common
something that
requests
can be-
readily
More than an
available,
hour. It's gonna-
there's no fee. These are just for the things that are more involved.
But at the same time, if you've got one of these corporations that are just trying to mine you, we can.
Yeah.
Give them. Some reason to leave you alone,
Yeah, well, they can consider it.
or at least pay you.
or pay us, yeah.
I mean. For that, I'd almost like it to be higher.
But there are legitimate requests by general public, we've had members of our community with legitimate requests that, you know, I don't want to defer that.
No, but if the first hour is free, and the second hour is a reasonable request, and it happens to be $30. Compared to some corporation out of state that wants to sign up for 2 weeks. Why are the taxpayers helping to fund for that? Bill Katie out at her reasonable rate,
But I think it's more soon, isn't it?
or all of it. Unfortunate enough to draw the short straw. It's just, it's just my thought on it.
Yeah. It's the board's pleasure, it's your policy, we'll do as you will, but this reflects the conversation that was at the policy committee.
We
almost
did have,
identical.
we did have quite a spirited and at length debate with several different examples given of different situations where, this would come into play. More for, those situations, those mining type situations. And that this number should, be enough that it does recoup most of our cost in the situation, but not so high that it prevents, somebody from actually making a legitimate request in our community. And we wanted to strike a balance there. That I think that we really did wind up with that balance because everybody on both sides of the room was unhappy. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so I think we really did get there.
I'll just say. I know this isn't the case that we're in. But you called up your lawyer and asked to get your will, which they would happen to be holding on to. It'd be $350 and it'd take them less than 10 minutes.
Per hour and every part of an hour is an hour.
You better believe it. And so, $20 for a record retention and the first hour is free. It's pretty damn cheap.
Yeah,
It is.
Like we talked about with the public information.
Yeah, but the public is also paying for that quest.
Yep.
So,
I think it sounds reasonable.
So do we want to make a motion or just?
It's just a first reading, right? Or
First
do we,
reading. No, it's first reading.
so do we have to accept it as a?
You
first
accept it as a first reading and then
This first reading.
Well,
I move that we accept this first reading of this the public right to know freedom of access policy and send it for a second reading.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
No, do you
Yeah.
have an issue where you think it should be readdressed by the policy committee, or are you? I mean, I know you voiced some concerns also, like, do you think we need to revisit this, or do you think this would be all right to?
I think it's really cheap. I really think it's cheap. You know. First hour is free, second hour doesn't even cover the secretary's time to cover it. You know, and to be quite honest with you, I think most of your public or local public, we're gonna be asking for these records, probably gonna be able to get that within that first hour. I just hate to see that we were, you know, funding LifeLock or one of these other outfits, you know, for just a useless records retention search. That just tied up a lot of people's time. That's just my thought. But do I have a number? No, I don't have a number.
And what have we experienced with? In the past, as far as,
Minimal, most everything's taken care of in the first hour. It's fairly straightforward. It's just those bigger requests, and it's typically from an organization, either a business or a nonprofit that's looking for big chunks of information.
How many times would you say in the last 10 years you've actually billed this out? 2 times. No,
None,
you've
because
never
the-
actually billed it out.
because
They've
the-
actually-
As soon as I tell them what
Estimate.
the estimate is, they
And that was at
Stop
15 an
talking.
hour.
And I think that was the point at which we kind of came to more of a consensus in the policy committee meeting, was when we discussed the fact that this is not actually come into play in over a decade.
But if it was $100 an hour after the first hour, we wouldn't have to revisit this policy for the next 10 years.
Well, the next year at least, the way inflation.
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
right.
I- I
But
revisit.
at $20 with, you know, 10% inflation, we might have to revisit this in 6 months.
it's your pleasure. I mean, if you want to have a conversation here and adjust that to a different number, that's within your purview too. It's whatever you want to
Could
do.
we make this fee formulaic so it follows with the cost of collecting it?
But now that it gets,
Yeah, you could, yeah.
it's within our purview.
Okay, I'm getting a lot of looks. Overthinking things as usual.
Check with Sue and Katie, that's good doing that.
but no, my only concern is just, you know, eventually if it gets too cheap, you could get that phone call from somebody that wants to tie up your entire.
And that's the
office
reason
staff
why
for a week.
I brought it forward to go from 15 to suggested 20.
But I don't think we're at a point where we're ever gonna turn somebody away from getting their vaccination records free. You know, because it isn't gonna take an hour to get that done.
Or proof of their graduation. Those things, yeah, that's. Some of them are deep within the cobwebs, but we can.
Oh, I imagine, yeah. All of my crap's probably somewhere underneath your office, in the basement there, right behind the voice room.
No.
Yeah,
So you have a motion and a second. So move forward to vote and Mr. Foster,
I approve.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Abby Foster,
Yes,
Mr. Frazier,
Yes,
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
and Mr. Wentworth.
Yes.
And Mr. Neal.
Yes,
Okay, that takes care of KDB. Let's see, our second policy we brought forward is a brand new policy. This policy is policy IMDC, the celebration of holidays. we've had a practice in the district, and I'll look to our administrators, that we've had a working understanding that, you know, we would recognize there are holidays, but we're not going to make these grandiose celebrations that last all day. And that if we're gonna do the celebration, and most of these occur at the elementary level. High school principals really shy away from, you know, these kind of celebrations. I don't know why, it's in their DNA, I guess. But the idea has been, we don't compete with the food service program, so that means we're not gonna have a party with cake, cookies, and ice cream, and kale, spinach before lunch. But we'll do it after lunch, and we try to contain it to about an hour. This policy reflects exactly that. That wasn't our language. This is right from the fall policy we got from MSMA. It also talks about that it's okay to recognize a holiday which may have a religious origin. But it may be acknowledged in our public schools, so it's not to say you're not gonna be banned from saying Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. It's perfectly okay. It's part of life, and, you know, we want kids to understand diversity. Well, it's important to understand different celebrations as well. It's a great way to teach it. Historical and contemporary values and origins of the holidays may be explained in an unbiased, objective manner without sectarian indoctrination. That is so important, right? That we're not gonna be, you know, preaching one thing over another, but this is the existence. This is where it comes from. Here are the traditions associated.
During this season that
During
was
the season.
celebrated.
When we use music, art, literature, we can, you know, sing a Christmas carol at the holidays, or you can do an art depiction of that, okay? It has to be presented objectively, okay? And again, not preaching. Go on from there. The duration of the programs and activities should be linked to the curriculum, which is what we've said all along. And should not exceed a period of time equivalent to the academic value of the program or activity. So having the entire month of October be dedicated to Halloween, not.
Oh, man, some kids would not be sad about that. They would.
You know, those types of things. You know, and activities, you know, similar to, and what we typically know is there are classroom activities that will happen during the holidays, Valentine's Day, Christmas, different times, where there'll be a classroom party. All right, but it shouldn't exceed more than an hour, and it should be at the end of the day. Pretty simple, pretty common sense.
Can't get your sugar rush right at the beginning of the morning?
No, we give them the sugar, send them home.
That's right, we got, once they're out of control, that's when you gotta end the day.
I'm sure your bus drivers are very kind.
No, they appreciate it, they understand. Yeah. Good point, there may be a correlation with sick days. Love to research that. Again, we talked about some symbols displayed as examples of cultural and religious heritage. But they're temporary, they're not up all year long. You're not gonna have a Christmas tree up all year long. You're not gonna have a menorah up all year long, those types of things. Okay. That's pretty much it. And the acknowledgement of the holiday is going to emphasize historical, cultural, and social value. Okay. And it's not going to be used, any associated religion will not be used to endorse the religion on the holiday. So it's what I think common sense, middle of the road. This policy really captures what we've been doing for the past 12, 14 years here in this district. And what it does now, it just brings it into a policy. I heard back from the principals that they appreciate this because that gives them something that they can lean on and say, no, this is policy, this is what we're going to do, structure their activities around. I think that captures it.
Yes, I think it captured very well.
Any questions on this policy? I remember back in fourth grade, which is where I had like several days where he taught us about his Judaism. And we all had to spin the little dreidels.
Yeah.
Things. That was tons of fun.
Yeah.
And it was a great learning opportunity for us. And it wasn't in some sort of a threatening manner, right? It was
He didn't make you Jewish.
it didn't make him Jewish, no. And, you know, but it was a,
So
here's,
you learned about it.
here's what I do.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think that this gives a good opportunity to let people experience things that they might not otherwise experience.
Absolutely.
And in a non-threatening, you have to do this because we've got a list. It's more of a, this is what I do, so.
Well, the other good thing about it being at the end of the day is that parents choose to take their children out. It doesn't interrupt their whole day. I mean, it's unfortunate because they'll miss out on an experience like that, which I agree should be very valuable. But, you know, it's their prerogative and
No, I'm okay with that.
Motion for first reading.
We're looking for a motion. Anybody want to go for?
I will move to approve the first reading of the policy IMDC and send it for the second reading.
and I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go through roll call vote.
Mr. Foster,
I approve.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier,
Yes,
Mr. Nealon,
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, and Mr. Cobb.
Aye. Perfect. Thank you.
We have no second reading for policies. Before we go to item 10 and recognize the administrators, establishing budget workshop, my suggestion is Pi Day, March 14th. Is that okay?
What day is that?
Tuesday,
And 6 PM?
6 PM right here.
Next meeting.
Oh, we have policy committee that day anyway, so.
In
we
lieu-
have
in lieu
work
of-
early anyways.
yes.
Yeah, I'm fine.
So we're gonna be able to squeeze policy into a half an hour, the way things
No,
have been
in lieu
going?
of, in lieu of policy.
Yeah.
Oh, in lieu of,
Yeah.
okay.
Quite often with the policy committee, when we get into budget season, we kind of take a little bit of a back seat there, just unless it's something really pressing to concentrate on kind of those items in hand. We'll pick up-
I just
pick up
didn't think
pace
we
later
I
on.
didn't think we could be contained to a half an hour, that was my.
Not the group.
No, currently.
Currently developed.
No, I'm
It's
gonna work.
Good active engagement. I like that.
Okay, so we're on to
Administrator.
administrator report.
Yes.
First one I've got on the list. is Christina Ellis. Great.
There must be a delay because we haven't heard from Mr. Fraser.
Good evening, everybody. You have a copy of my report. Basically, my entire report this month was to give you an update on the state of Maine accountability assessment data that is now. Well, the state told us it was going to be live March 1st, which is tomorrow, but they released it on Friday, February 24th. So much for that idea of getting it to you before then. But you do have the information on the state's release of the percentage of our students who met or exceeded last spring's state expectation. So this would be the testing that happened last May, 2022. Our students will be taking this year's state accountability assessment beginning May 1st this year. And it is slightly different because the state had a waiver for 2 years. So we did use the NWEA assessment as our accountability assessment. We're still using the NWEA, but the state had to add an additional piece for it to meet federal guidelines. So this year we'll be getting 2 scores, but we won't get them until sometime in the summer. And we'll have a state accountability score and also like a percentage score that our kids are used to getting. So our data that you see in my report is also available on the main DOE website, available for public viewing. And so I just copied that information for you in the report. You'll see the percentage of students at or above state expectations in English language arts, math, and science. And the science data is best grades 5 through 8 and last year's junior class. And that also was a new assessment for our students the year before, but we didn't get score reports the year before for science. It was standard setting. And so this would be our first time getting the science data. I also gave you the percentage of students who participated. We are looking for 95%. We were just shy of that in a couple of areas, and we are going to work on that. Primarily, it's tricky at the high school. Sorry, Mr. Tripp, but it's true. That's where we have the most difficulty in getting our students to participate. It's just a little bit harder. This year, it will be our sophomores and not our juniors taking the NWEA assessment of the state accountability assessment. I also gave you information that you would find on that dashboard about our percentage of students who are chronically absent, so that you would have that information as well. Without making it a full agenda topic, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have, or if you wanted to dig more into this data, I'd be happy to meet with you individually or over the phone. And that's the bulk of my report.
Was that, I mean, were you surprised by those results? There's a lot of yellows and some really low numbers in yellow. Like, I was kind of shocked and taken back by some of those low percentages. Were you expecting that, or was that a surprise?
So I was expecting it in science, just because it's a brand new assessment and we didn't get data from the year before, so we didn't have anything to compare it to. And also, we do need to update our science curriculum, and that is our plan for next year. So I think that once the state gives us released science items, and they have not yet, so we don't even know, we don't have samples of what we can prepare our kids for right now. So that makes it a little tricky. Those are supposed to come out this year. So yes, you know, of course, I want to see numbers. We all want to see numbers that are higher than the numbers for the science assessment, but it wasn't totally surprising.
Okay.
And then our percentages, I did highlight our percentages, mostly because I want to make sure it's something we focus on and make sure we get our percentages up there, because title funding can be based on that information. So we do really want to shoot for that 95%. That is, we don't want to shoot for it. We're going to do it.
It's the expectation. There's no
So,
ifs, ands, or buts about it.
right. So that would be the area that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted. As far as like the English language arts at the 77%, I guess what I want to share is this data is going to look so different when I share next year's. So it's really tricky because these percentages are based on an emergency COVID, you know, plan that the state put into place. So these really, it says the percentage of students at or above state expectations, but it was basically, and I tried to describe it for you in my notes. It's basically taking where the 50th percentile is across the nation, like a third grader averaging, you know, 50th percentile would be 201. And the standard deviation, either side of that was, say, 14 RIP points. So a student that was 14 points below that 201 or 14 points above that 201 was counted as at or above expectation. And that's going to be completely different this time because the state is setting cut scores. We're still going to get that what percentage of student at across the nation, but then we're also going to get where is that child at based on state of need standards. So I guess I take this with a grain of salt, really, because it's going to look completely different when we get the data next year. And it's a little frustrating that we got it in February, so it's hard to use this data when we're testing again May 1st.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the data or any information? If you go onto the ESSA dashboard on the DOE website, you can get all kinds of other information about our district as well, or the state. You know, our teacher workforce, our chronic absenteeism, our graduation rates. So it's a warehouse of information, and we can check that to make sure it's accurate. So. Any other questions? Thank you.
Next, I have Josh.
You have a report, I actually think I put it in there twice on accident. Obviously, Tom mentioned it was a very busy winter, pretty exciting February. I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Ward. He does a fantastic job organizing those senior nights and all of our athletic programs. And the winter is extremely busy just in terms of the number of different things going on. I think we recognized over, like, I don't know, I'll repeat the flower shop in business, and it was like over 150 flowers that we gave out in like a 2-week span. Parents and, you know, some getting multiple, because if you're in the pep band and you're on a basketball team and you're in robotics, you got to come out there a lot. But again, you can't have enough recognition for those types of activities. So it's a really good, and then there was good games paired with most of those senior nights. So we got really lucky and had a great atmosphere. And then as finished. The report is really kind of moving into things like unified basketball. We have robotics that is really up and going. They're going to have their competitions in the next month and a half. And then we have our one act festivals coming up as well in a couple of weeks here. So, you know, I kind of give you the roundup of the winter sports and all the success we had. We like to think that there's this downtime between winter and spring, but there really is no downtime. I mean, it just kind of all blends together. And then on top of that, we have all of our scheduling and getting ready for the next school year. So it's hard to believe that we are scheduling for next year and making those decisions on courses, but it is happening in the next week or two. I don't think any questions on my report.
Is there Unified still going, Joe?
Yes, yep.
When does
So-
that end? Or is there champion, there's a champion?
So there's no longer, so there used to be a competitive division. This is my personal opinion. I'm glad that that is gone, because that really changed the dynamics, even though we were pretty successful in that. It is now just about kids going out and enjoying basketball and having a good experience. You get our first home game, we had 2 more, I believe. Our crowd was fantastic. When the pep band was there, our cheerleaders were there. That whole side of the bleachers was packed. With folks from Camden, from RSU 25. If you have never been to one, I would highly encourage.
I've watched it on the home games that we.
Yeah. And we haven't been able to do that last year, even though there was a unified season. You know, because of just different stipulations and some of the, you know, having to wear masks, it just didn't work out as well in terms of have games. And now that we can have a more normal season with practices, it's really a great experience. You can't help but with that with just a great feeling and a smile on your face.
Yeah, you couldn't have got a better coach too, Joe.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, and our officials, and we get Director Gagan out there helping me out and again, it's
pretty cool.
The kids feel like it's a varsity basketball game, like just like, I mean, it's that feel. So, I look forward to every single one of them.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John? Thank you very much. Next, we've got Todd.
And so everyone has a copy of my report, kind of keeping with that theme of wrapping up one season and starting another. Our girls B basketball team had a PBML championship, first one in a long time. I don't know, I mean, it's been a long time for that program. So that was nice to see. And then if anyone is interested, tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 in the high school gym is going to be the first ever middle school volleyball game. So come check it out. And we use the high school gym because they have like the really official in the ground net stanchions that we covered over at the middle school. And we put the new flooring because we said there's no middle school volleyball league. There's no chance of ever having middle school volleyball. And all we had to do was say that and they made the league.
Right. Famous last words.
Yeah, so we're also starting as Josh is getting ready to start, registering kids for next year. We're starting the process of sending in kids for next year. And so high school counselors have already been to the middle school talking with 8th graders. Students are going to come next week. The counselors are going to come back and begin registering students for classes, inviting parents in to be part of those conversations. So that's always like the anxiety in the blue pod, which is where the 8th grade classes are, always kind of goes up a little bit when it starts to strike those kids that will go into high school next year. And this is a big step in the process, and they're excited, but they're also a little nervous because it's a new setting. And so we're glad that that's underway, and we're working with them there. Our STARS program has really started to find its groove a little bit. One of the initial components of that program was some community outreach, that it took a while to kind of find the right way to do it, but the students in that program have really taken it upon themselves to think of themselves as providing service to the community. And so before vacation, they went to the senior center. They had brought Valentines down to seniors to share with them during one of their meals. They are going to start working with 1st and 2nd grade students on a collaborative project around making maple syrup, where the STARS students are going to serve as like leaders to the little kids and kind of walk them through the process. And then there's some sort of kindergarten sewing project that I'm not really sure how it happened, but They're sewing stuffed animals
They are.
and exchanging them.
The kindergartners are drawing their favorite stuffies,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna give them to the star students who are going to sew the stuffed animal.
And so,
Super cute.
yeah, so, but they, you know, they really have latched on onto this idea that they can provide service to others. With if you've ever hung out with middle school students, that can be tough sometimes, right? It's a stage developmentally where you tend to kind of be all about yourself and finding out who you are. So the fact that they're really excited about reaching out and doing things to make other people's day better is pretty neat. And it's student generated. Like that wasn't the teacher saying, hey, let's sew stuffies, or, you know, it's like they came up with ideas on their own. And so it's pretty exciting. And our applied learning lab is really coming along. There's a lot of progress on the inside that you may not necessarily be able to see from the outside, but we're slowly but surely moving towards completion on that. The Department of Education hasn't gotten in our way recently, so we're making some good progress. If anyone wants to see what's going on inside, there are some times in the day where students are using the space, and folks are welcome to just shoot me an email and you can take a tour. If you want to see what students are doing in an experiential, hands-on way, we'd be happy to show you. And we are hoping for like a May somewhere, May 1st, May 15th, grand opening open house. There's rumors of an extension of that grant that they might let us know about before it's time to be at that stage. We're not sure. It's very wishy-washy at the moment. So if there's any questions?
Well, at my house, there's a lot of Little Mermaid songs going on.
Yes, yes.
And I think I know all the songs. If you need backup, if somebody's sick when it comes to it.
The understudy?
I'm the understudy of every role. We're practicing every night.
So we're shooting
That
for
sounds so
early,
cool. They're
early
very
May.
excited.
Yep, early May, performance of that. We're gonna wait just a little bit to make sure that everyone's gonna be on track for that date before we finalize the show date. But we're excited
Oh,
to have
I think my
spring
kids are ready tomorrow.
Yes.
They're very excited.
We wanna make sure the director's
Nope, they're good. They're happy as long as it goes. They want as much as they can.
Thank you, John. Next, we've got Darcy.
My board report is also in the drive, and if you haven't checked out the pictures in there, you have to check out the pictures, super cute. We recently finished our winter NUIA assessments. And now staff have been looking at the data in order to structure their flex grouping within their classrooms, between classrooms. And I've been working with the intervention teams, and we're working on our intervention groups, our next stage of intervention groups. The week before February break, we thank you to Student Council. We had a great fun week, a spirit week. And it wasn't partying all day, every day, I promise. There was a theme every day, and we had one day, was 100th day. We reached our 100th day of school, and the kids came to school dressed as 100-year-old people. They had wigs and canes. It was very nice, very cute. We had planned a winter carnival the Friday before break. However, the weather did not cooperate. So Friday for Spirit Week was beach day. So we ended up having an indoor beach day that day. We had flashlight reading, a beach party in the gym, school-wide scavenger hunt. Everybody was out in the hallways looking at these crazy little pictures, and they were very engaged and excited. And then the other event that we had at the beginning of February, which I'm super proud of, was our concert. We haven't done that in a long time. So the second week of February, our fourth graders and our Wing 3 Music Club proudly showed off their musical talent. They sang, they played instruments, and we filled that gym. It was packed. I had to go look for chairs to get the rest of the people into the gym. And the audience seemed really engaged. I saw parents standing up and singing and cheering them on and clapping. So Very successful. Does anybody have any questions? Those are the highlights of February.
Thank you very much, guys. Next, I've got Andrea Lawrence. Special ed. Yeah.
Good evening. We're in the middle of looking at next year and numbers and how many fourth grade students will go to fifth, eighth grade to high school, so that we can really look at our numbers and the needs and see what type of programming we'll need for our children. We've gone and we started doing our PLCs, we're doing some targeted things, going back to our basics, talking about communication channels. We're trying to gather information as far as learning rubrics for looking at cognitive learning styles or preferences and how that will line up. And what type of interventions would need that, and I'll make a little menu type of thing so that it's a source that everyone knows what types of interventions go with, say, working memory deficits. What would you go with a degree of behavioral challenging? We've been looking at that. We're starting to get the CDS files in from our fourth graders that will be coming to kindergarten. And looking at that, setting up the transition meeting so that we be prepared in kindergarten. We're just doing a lot of those housekeeping pieces and working through the parts and systems and trying to kind of look at what we're already doing, seeing if there's a scope and sequence to it, and also see and try to make it more systematic, so that we don't have gaps of service in places, and just trying to be more effective and more intentional about what methodology we're going to use, instead of it all goes to individualized instruction for sure, but there is a process that will take you there quicker and ensure promotion of better progress and engagement. And that's what we're all about, is growth is from engagement. That's it.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we've got Kat.
We've got a full house, which is fantastic. We love it. But I've been able to start all that mess with the HiSET testing and how horrible it was getting it all set up. It is all smoothed out. We have, as you can see from my report, we started testing and it couldn't be going smoother. Now, I probably shouldn't say, I probably jinxed it. But I'll have two more graduates very shortly, and there's actually a queue waiting in I'm the only examiner right now, because none of the teachers are allowed to proctor this exam. So right now there's a queue waiting to get in, and they're doing very well. We have both a CAD class that was one student shy of filling, and we have people from, I think I've been reporting builders, site supervisors, landscapers, architects. We have someone who's designing buildings from scratch on paper and doing it as a business. When there's a change, they have to redo everything by hand. So, as well as our clinical medical class, which being people, I think you hear me say this quite a bit, but most of them have very low computer skills. And we're getting them all up to speed. And this is something to keep, retain, upskill a job, or get a new job. So we're pretty excited. And that has been, I think, the most difficult piece, except maybe math. And they struggle with that a little bit too in the CMA class. But we're going strong. They're about ready to start with their new lab. I hope to have pictures for you. She's not quite finished, but the new instructor, Tina Williams, is there, and she's been doing complete inventory clean out, really updated our program, which hasn't happened in a couple of years. And I was out today and really looking at the station she's setting up. So I'm hoping for next board meeting to have some really great pictures for you. It looks fantastic out there. We're getting some new supplies to make sure our students are staying up with the technology that's required on the job. Biggest thing is we haven't had to do cohort classes for the diploma and the high set students for a while. And that is the only way we're getting everybody in right now. We've been literally getting flooded, and they're not COVID related, which I really thought we'd see. And they're not so many for the university program. We're seeing them for all kinds of reasons, but I don't know whether being away from the public for 2 years, all of a sudden they just want to get out, or whether it's a push by employers. It is really difficult, I'm sure you all know right now, to get a job without a diploma, even though there's an employee shortage. So we see probably 60% of the students are there because they can't get a job without a diploma. And they finally gotten to an age, it was okay when you were 19 and you're doing Burger King or McDonald's or whatever, but now, you're a little older, you're trying to support a family. And they can't get those jobs without. So they're back and in a lot of cases, it's not very much that they need to do. I was surprised. A lot of our students left with very little to get done. We're excited. Good to be busy. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Next I've got Jen here.
So we're getting to the point of year where I was just thinking about the March newsletter, and I might run out of room, might have to make it longer. It's just getting to be a lot of things to be able to share, which is exciting. The time of year where there's more trips again and more requests. So we recently funded a request that's a collaboration between the middle school and Miles Lane for the maple syrup work that they're gonna do. So we were able to fund that, and they have a guest coming tomorrow as part of that trip. We presented at the Economic Development Committee meeting this past month. Mr. Ruthie was there as well as a member of that committee. And that was nice because we hadn't presented to that committee on the Aspire initiative since December of 2021. And there had been a large change in that committee. So it was good to be able to answer their questions, help them get an understanding of the initiative and how businesses and community members can be involved and what sort of opportunities are available for students. So that was good. And we're helping the high school team that used to do college tours for sophomores. So that's coming back this spring. We're excited about that. It'll be college and business tours, and there will be a group that will be going to MDI region. There'll be a group going to Bangor, a group going to Orono. So they'll be able, students say what their interests are. They don't necessarily pick where they want to go because they don't necessarily know. We don't want them to pick based on what school it is or where their friends are going. We want to know what are they really interested in so that it can be the most useful experience for them to go out and see at least a campus and a business. The 8th graders are going out tomorrow to visit schools. So Jordan's been working with the JMG specialist at BMS to help coordinate that. So they'll get, it's probably going to be for most of them their first chance to get on a campus. So we're trying to just get back to that because we still have some juniors and seniors who didn't get some of those typical things that usually would happen as a sophomore. And so we are still doing the small group tours, the Field Trip Friday model.
although it's not always on Friday. We've had some scheduling issues where it's field trip Thursday. But we're still doing those because we do want to make sure that students have a chance to see a variety of places, or if they're a senior and there isn't going to be another big group outing. Those, we were having trouble for a couple of the offerings at getting enough interest. So we've been experimenting with how to do that, and we sat up in the lobby one day just before break, and that was really successful. And we had a lot of kids that came up and just asked what's being offered. So we're hoping, we have a schedule, we're gonna get back to having the larger van for the spring, so we're looking forward to some spring outings. Jordan was able to take a couple of students interested in health science down to a career expo that was in Portland earlier in the month. And so that went really well. And we've been working, as Abby said, looking at long-term sustainability, talking with administrators on priorities and getting feedback from our committee as well as the curriculum steering committee. Any questions?
Thanks, Jen. And then next we have Jim Moore.
Good evening, couple quick topics today. Jim talked earlier about the insurance claims that we had for physical damage through MSMA partner members. Today, we got to talk a little bit about the cybersecurity aspect of that, and how our daily activities and our planning impacts that. We just recently finished what's called the NCSR, which is a self-guided evaluation for cybersecurity that's measured against two standards, NIST and CISA. Anytime someone wants to sit down and chat with me on those, love to explain them to you. Basically where we stand as compared to where we should be as a baseline. So I'm happy to say in some areas we excelled for first year, and other areas I'd like to be able to redo it next year before we share it in public. But that's what it's all about. It's about finding your foundation and building yourself stronger. With that in mind, I'll roll into the other projects we've heard about with the revolving renovation grants and the BIMS project for a lot of the HVAC. We have the new server up, and I'm glad to say that it's built the way it should be inside the system, that it cannot touch components of the network and we can't touch it, which is awesome. That's something we've strived for, is as we bring in new levels of technology independence, as we've heard everything's technology. We've heard it from Kathy, we've heard it from Josh, we've heard it from everyone down the line. So we try to make sure we do it right. And so it's good to be aware of that stuff as we build those networks, because that's not traditionally how we've operated. Two events coming up in March that I have to be able to participate in. I'll be a Skills USA judge again in the networking and computer science. Kind of a bland way to say it, but the competition that they're going to have, it'll be located at Eastern Maine Community College again this year. And as well as on the 23rd of March, the Meta group, which I'm a board member of, will be holding a physical security event for schools and municipal law enforcement. That's located in Portland. I'm happy to attend that, not only to set it up, but also speak with vendors about physical security. So we're talking about alerting systems, we're talking about notification systems that have a digital aspect to it, as well as door controls, cameras, and artificial intelligence that goes with that. A big focus for my department starting last month, and actually the middle schools where we started, was SOPs. Standard operating procedures of how we work. We know we have those in the classroom, so we keep students on track. Teachers know what to expect. They fill in for classroom. It's the same thing we're trying to do for us, is as people come to us or a building has a question about how things work, SOPs are in place and available to them. But more importantly, I have a tech member that's on vacation this week. So there are two of us filling in at BMS as needed. We want to make sure we don't mess up the workflow or break the way the policies work or keep someone out of the loop that needs to know information. So that's been a big focus for us the last 30 days and will continue indefinitely at this point. Real quick overview, any specific questions or general?
Jim, how much are we using artificial intelligence right now?
Right now in our district, on the top of my head, I want to say none, but I'd be lying to you a little bit because Google and Microsoft in the background use artificial intelligence for cyber alerts for us. Suspicious logins, multiple logins, attempted phishing attempts that they identify, that's all artificial intelligence. In district now, our security systems don't currently use it. Our next generation, I would expect they would. I'll bring up the one thing no one wants to talk about, which is facial recognition. That will not be what we're looking to deploy, nor will it be something that we would do without letting you folks know. However, a lot of those systems now, if we're looking for a black truck, we can type in black truck. Or if we're looking for a person in a red shirt, we can type in person in a red shirt. And that helps us try to track somebody through the building. I know in the past, we've used the systems that we have, and I've reviewed hours of video for a theft or possible trespass in the building.
So here's the big issue that I've been reading up on the
Yeah.
chat. The chat,
ChatGPT.
yes,
So that's a good topic. If you're not familiar with that, that from the educational aspect, people are saying kids are gonna cheat. And I think the aspect that I brushed over with Christina real quick was they're gonna cheat themselves. You know, that's how we work oftentimes. So we do have ChatGPT blocked currently here at the campus, but it's not to keep kids away from it. It's to introduce kids before we get there. I've already spoken with Amber here at the high school. And she wants to open it this quarter to show kids how it works and see how AI works versus them. The other aspect that Amber and I talked about as well as Christina was that you know your students. We're small enough to know our students, which is nice. And so when you get someone coming in with a killer pressure essay that uses words that they've never spelled ever,
actually, they
Red
can,
flags.
actually you can make it look like
you can
it's,
gauge it,
right,
right? For that tone.
and it looks like
It-
that's what you did.
It's getting impressive. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, in the code
Scary.
world, programmers are using it and said they've been 10 times more efficient. Now you spin that, for every positive comes a negative, right? So malicious coders, so you have more novice level persons, they're able to do more impactful malware and ransom. So that's always a world we end up with, but we will end up opening ChatGPT. We basically held the gateway because it wants to be introduced to you. And I'll tell you, our message boards, Meta, block, ban, don't do it, whack-a-mole, let it open, it's gonna happen, heavy teachers teach, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Jim, my personal thought on ChatGPT is it'd be great if you could work with the curriculum committee so that, we have a smart policy towards AI instruction. If this was, when I first came on school board here forever ago, we were talking about not having cell phones in school.
Right.
Not letting the kids touch the internet, because of course they were going to cheat.
Yeah.
The honest truth is you have to be some sort of technological hermit like myself to get away with not being able to use a cell phone. And if you are doing a job now and you're not somehow being able to use the internet properly, that is also, almost unheard of. And I suspect that probably in the next 10 years, we won't have anybody who isn't actively engaged in some sort of AI to better create whatever they're going to be creating. Whether it's an art project, English project, being able to figure out what calculus even is, which with me helping my sons on that, if it wasn't for the internet, there's no way that would have ever happened. Because I certainly wasn't. And so, I really think engaging in technology is really the development of education, not the suppression of it, because we haven't figured out how to make it so that somebody isn't cheating. In a way, the cheating is learned, because you've figured out how to do it more efficiently and more effectively than the people before you.
Exactly.
And so,
I mean, how are you gonna stop a student from going home and using it?
No, we absolutely don't. And that's one of the things we try to do is, even with our filter. So up through middle school, we don't allow social media. The high school, we allow social media until it's gone. My dad would always say, I'm gonna give you all the space you need until you mess it up, and then I pull the rope hard at that point. It's not exactly how he said it, I can't see. But yeah, that's exactly what it is, and that's why when it first surfaced, my first action was to remove it from, nobody knew about it. And so now I've engaged with our English department, now I've engaged with a curriculum coordinator to know, our director, so that we know how we're going to and give students skills. If you think about the fact that when we first put computers in, I don't know the full history here, but there probably was internet access. But once there was, that computer was not allowed to have students on it. And as we mentioned, now you rely on the internet for virtually everything. But there's an introductory level to make sure that they have proper access and taught how to use the tool.
And
And anytime you let them use joint curriculum, just give me a heads up.
And that's where I think, you know, you and Abby want to get together and
Sure.
figure out how we can best make a curriculum policy towards introducing that at as young a level as possible, so that people are using it for the right reasons.
Well, one thing the curriculum committee is already doing, or Christina is doing, is she's incorporating like technology into the entire curriculum, right? And we've talked about that. I don't know if we do need a policy around it, if that actually needs to come from the policy committee. I don't know.
Both directions.
Yeah, I mean, we're building technology into everything, so, cause it used to be that you'd have like a technology class, well, like, it's everywhere now, it's just gotta be in everything. And that's something they're doing as they're going through those learning standards and starting it all over the place.
And, you know, I understand, you know, grammar, for instance. The grammar sloppy, is nasty, it's awful. But computer can fix it for me. Is that something that I shouldn't learn how to do? It's not really. So this, even though I'm over 50 now, I've been trying to perfect it, it's still not perfect.
Faster you can type and you can make the mistakes first.
But it's a whole different disorder.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a great speller, because of spell check. I mean, honestly, I've always been like, that it's close to this, just type it in and Word will tell
But
you.
it's also how someone can read my audit opinions is because of spell check.
Yeah,
Because without that, no one would know what that.
well, and my father is a wonderful math teacher, but he's not a speller either, so the odds are I might not have ever learned how to spell a lot of things correct. We'll never know, because I rely on all this technology.
Like that is like, which is supersonic, what we're getting to.
It is interesting where AI is gonna end up, but if you look at the job market, we look at, like coding, for years we've said coding is the way to go. If we look at, re-education of persons that were in other facilities, talking about our mill, many of them went into coding classes through the state. And now you have Chat GPT, and that's not the only one, there's several of them, this one you said hard and very fast. I can now do coding as if I had 10 years of experience. So now where does that put the 10-year experience person? When I went to school, I went for a web program, so I was designing websites and building websites from scratch. That's still applicable to my job, but it's not my job, because if I was still doing that, I'd be poor, because by the time I program and charge you for it, you'd be 2 years beyond and 15 money. So you definitely have to adapt with the times, where it leads, who knows, but you think of all the applications there.
So much access.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's important to get our practitioners, teachers, and students, not just for you, but to get some actionable feedback. And we have to know how it fits into our community here and how we're gonna use it without actually getting some hands-on experience with it and then setting and figuring out, okay, yeah, we're feeding the system by doing this. I'd rather know that and say like, hey, this is what they're doing. So we can say, all right, you're gonna cheat the system, but we're gonna make sure that we're supplementing that somehow or, you know, we're demonstrating somewhere else. Because if we don't, then we're going into it blindly, we're not really, and we're in policy in the correct way.
I know the high school English teachers have been right on.
Yeah. Amber and I had a very good conversation about it.
And
And her want to introduce it to the students.
The articles that are coming out now, where every week I'm getting something, how can we use this effectively? And it's from both sides of the spectrum.
Just no deep fake, Lauren. I don't want to see any of that.
Well, it's kind of funny you say it that way, because if you look at our learning system, someone had mentioned earlier, they're just gonna go home and do it anyways. Our filters go with them. But this, not that I want to admit to it, it's probably more powerful than 3/4 of the computers our students carry, arguably than our staff carry. And I will tell you that my alerting, I probably now send Josh 1 a month. I was sending Todd 6 a day. We're down to maybe 2 a week. And I think it's more prevalent at your school because they're less likely to have additional technology. And we used to have, and just the personal use of the device over February break, I get a notice if a machine hasn't touched online after 7 days because it indicates possible theft or hijacking of the system. I had 119 machines indicate to me they hadn't been touched. It used to be 3. They, it stays in the book bag, they leave it in school. It's just not as prevalent as a device as homes become more so, and that's the difference. Which is almost good for me, because now it is a school tool. Rather than the one computer that everyone wants to tap the house. Jim's world is dynamic, there's no doubt about that. And I can tell you through the insurance lens, and that's where we're intersecting with Jim and his organization. It's amazing where our conversations have gone just in the last 5 years. And the exposure, the highest rate increases right now for your insurance program are tied into your school board legal liability and your cyber liability. And we're introducing a new program through the trust. And we get the pleasure of being one of the guinea pigs.
That's good.
It's amazing, but the program in insurance cyber is not out there in the rest of the insurance world. We're customizing something for schools. But if you don't have it, of course, there's always a cost to it, but if you don't have it, your exposure and your risk is amazing because of what the laws are around. If you have hacking and what you have to do,
Just this week, there was a large federal agency that was hacked ransomware. And the federal government applies the when rather than the if. So they're more focused on where they guide us as well is your reaction. Stop it, how do you remediate it? Because it's going to happen. Stop it quick, remediate it. And as they said, they went to a subsystem, restore, they're still doing their job of investigating the issue. And that's the key is can you operate when it happens? Obviously, you're not giving up on when it happened, but can you continue operation and learn from what you've experienced?
And the inverse of that is the city of Oakland, California, which is now still offline after weeks.
Shut down.
Was shut down because they didn't have the systems in place. There was no redundancy. That's something Jim and I talked about. How are we able to bounce back?
And the plan we had 3 years ago in place is now extinct. So we're find something now we're getting back on paper and focus. So it's a constant evolution. We're not talking annual anymore. We're talking at least twice, 3 times a year.
Whole world.
Sure.
Anything else?
Thanks, Jim.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now that brings us down to calendar and announcements.
On March 9th, we have Facilities Committee at 4:30, Spire Committee at 5:30, and Curriculum Committee at 6:30.
Be there or be square,
So
guys.
if you want a fun-filled afternoon. Facilities Committee, we have been relegated to the basement yet again.
What? Sorry, guys.
It's not about us, I'm sorry.
Maybe if you improve it, it will be a good place to be.
I gotta do both places.
March 14th, budget workshop, that'll be here at 6 o'clock. And Finance Committee, School Board meeting, March 21st, 5:30 and 6. That's what, did I miss anything this time? I think so.
So budget and policy are both on the book.
No, but policy is gone dark.
Gone dark.
Bringing in another world of mine. Okay.
Right, I would look for a motion to vote.
Like to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and now for a roll call vote.
Foster. Ms. Burns. Yes. Ms. Foster.
In agreement.
Ms. Frazier, Mr. Frazier.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yeah.
Mr. Nealon.
Yes.
We